In order to get everything to line up, it's what Sam's doing right there is we're bracing up the back of the motor, and by doing that, we want to get everything in the same plane that the transmission is. You want to make sure that they made up. So it's, once again, it's real important to do these things.
All right, go ahead and get back to work.
Sam's Garage is brought to you by Brothers Truck Parts.
I've been in New Orleans. I came for sure. I've never been so close before. It's one way or the other.
On this episode of Sam's Garage, Sam will showcase a product from Original Parts Group Incorporated. Joe DuPont will showcase a couple of products from NH Oil Undercoating Incorporated to protect your vehicle from corrosion. Sam, along with Kevin Ford, will continue working on the Buick Skylark project. The long-awaited Hudson Hornet rebuild project will be back on Sam's Garage.
We all know OPGI to be your #1 source when it comes to old school parts for your Chevelle, A-Body, G-Body, Cadillac, Oldsmobile, and Pontiac. They've got mechanical parts, they've got high performance parts, and what you see in my shop today is a 2011 Cadillac CTS-V. I was very surprised to go on there and see that they actually sell performance parts for this application. What we're going to be installing today is their jet performance part for the throttle enhancer on this car. Now, we all know that ever since 2000, 2002, cars have come with electronic throttle bodies. And so when we hit the gas, there is a slight delay as to when the throttle body actually reacts. Well, this basically goes in series and interrupts the signal from the computer to the throttle body, so that when you hit the gas, depending on where you set the sensitivity, that throttle body is going to react instantly. So it's going to feel as if we have a cable hooked up like the old school days. And you know, Jet Performance has been around a long time. They're one of the pioneers of performance chips. So we know this product's going to work on our vehicle and give us long-lasting performance and give us peace of mind. And it's very easy to install. You guys want to make sure that when you're installing a throttle enhancer like this, you want to make sure to have the key off, take it out of the car, and open the driver's side door, keeping it open the entire time while you're installing this. That way you'll guarantee you won't have any check engine lights or any issues once you turn the car back on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the knee panel underneath. We're going to access our connector, and all we're going to do is interrupt it with the cable that's supplied in the kit. And this is a very easy setup. You got the cable that goes into the throttle body supplied in the kit, and then you have this controller that goes into the module, and the module you're going to just pretty much zip tie underneath the dashboard somewhere. And the cool thing about this particular one is that it's very simple with one mode, giving you a LCD display right here with an up and down to be able to adjust the sensitivity. That way there's no guesswork, there's no other modes, it's easy to install. You can almost set it and forget it. Very easy, simple display, one mode. 0 would be turned off, so that's going to be a stock factory sensitivity. Then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? 5 being the most aggressive. Now, what you have to be careful of is when you guys have automatics and you're just cruising around on the street, you don't want to take the sensitivity up too high, because what happens is that when you dip into the throttle, the transmission is going to want to downshift. And sometimes that can get annoying if you're just cruising around town and you don't want a lot of upshifting and downshifting. So maybe around the streets, put it on 1 or 2, all right? But then let someone pulls up next to you and you want to, you know, take off from the line and you want the transmission to shift like it's supposed to early and hard, put it on 4 or 5, and see which one is going to do better for you. Now, this is a very cool deal. It works in conjunction with the throttle body. It makes you feel as if you've added horsepower to the car, but really you've just added reaction time. And that is awesome, because when you hit the gas and you got all that power, it comes on quickly. What they have in these cars today is a thing called torque management inside the program. And so when you guys hit the gas, depending on what's going on with the car, traction control, spinning of the tires, it's going to dial back down the torque that it delivers to you. And that's going to be in way of timing and or throttle input. So you hit the gas, you're at 90% throttle. The car thinks you're not supposed to be at 90% throttle due to what's going on with the system. So it maybe give you 20 or 30% throttle. And that's where torque management comes in play. So what we want to do is make sure that we've got it to where it's not going to upset torque management, but we're going to get the benefit out of it. Okay, so that's probably one of the best upgrades we can do. I'm going to go ahead and crank the car just to make sure that we have no check engine lights when it's running. And we don't. I still have throttle response. Okay, so if I were to go up to, let's say, 3. Now here, I can already tell that it reacts quicker. On the street, when the car is moving, it's apples and oranges. So if you guys want to wake up your ride, OPGI has them for your newer vehicles, your Cadillacs, even Escalades will benefit from this feature.
When we come back, Sam, along with Joe DuPont, will showcase a couple of products from NH Oil Undercoating to help protect your vehicle against corrosion. Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by Brothers Truck Parts. Sam's Garage is brought to you by these fine companies.
Now, Joe, we don't have a lot of experience with it here in the South, but brine is very corrosive, right? Liquefied sodium. What's up with the sticking agents they put in it?
The sticking agents are there because if you get a nice toxic mix that actually works well in low temperatures and does a great job at keeping the ice down, the problem is if it washes off, it needs to be replaced. So what they do is they put the additive in there so that they can extend the life of that protection. So they come out sometimes 2-3 hours before the storm, lay it down. It's still there during the storm, many times right through the storm. The problem with the sticky additive is, one, if you drive over it,
it's going to stick to your car.
Doesn't discriminate. And the other challenge is in cleaning the surface. If you don't address that sticky additive, which we've done in our salt brine eliminator, if you don't address and break down that sticky additive, you're not removing.
And you won't get good adhesion.
And guess what? Car washes, 90% of them recycle their water, or a percentage of their water. Are they filtering that out?
You don't know.
I doubt it.
Right, right. So this is going to get off all the corrosiveness we have underneath. It'll get us a nice, good prep, because the surface has to be prepped really well, because your end result is only going to be as good as your prep, whether you're painting, whether you're doing undercoating, or even wax.
And we have a series of YouTube videos where we'll show if somebody wants to get into this and they want to try to do it at home. We sell the equipment with all the attachments. This attachment will allow you to get into the little nooks and crannies. But I got to tell you, no matter how good the product is, if the application is done properly, it's worthless.
Absolutely.
And we have factory-trained applicators across the country. We're actually going into a meeting with some business people that have been using our product and they're going to sell. So we're into Canada, we'll be international, but more importantly, we're across the United States in the top half where you need it. If you go into one of our applicators, they know what they're doing, they have the right equipment, they've made investment in time to come out and be trained and get the job done right.
Absolutely. And you guys, these newer vehicles, a lot of the newer vehicles have a lot of body cladding for aerodynamic purposes. So it's a good idea to go ahead and remove those plastic pieces, bring them down, and in some cases remove them completely so that you can get a good coverage on all the important pieces like the metal, the suspension components, control arms, all those items that need that wax. Then that way when it dries, you can go ahead and put the plastic cladding back up.
There's no magic bullet, and the hardest problem for us is cultural. It's thinking of this as a maintenance as opposed to a magic bullet, right? So you just do it one and done. Rust requires you to do maintenance, just like changing your engine oil.
And the beauty is that when you do prevent rust, you save so much money down the road because of maintenance from your mechanic, okay? You know, if we go into a job and we've got a couple hours labor in the book and you got a bolt that's rusty, you got to go in and drill something, you're going to be paying extra hours for that work. When you do an undercoating protection, you alleviate that problem. Everything is going to come off nice and like it's new. No rust, no issues.
Mechanics actually love offering the service because they're doing something beneficial for the customer, but by extending the life of that vehicle for the customer, they extend the service life for them.
For themselves.
And the residual value on a trade-in,
And anytime you save your customer money, you're always going to be the hero. Now tell us about this black undercoating that you have.
So the black undercoating is, I get into this business trying to save my own vehicle. And we do spray our own product, and we do about 3,000 vehicles a year. So we listen to the customer. And a lot of guys, including myself, said, it looks nice. I know you're protecting me, but it's shiny rust. Could we make it look better while we're protecting it and not put something counterproductive like paint? So what we did was we came out with a carbon tint to put in the oil. So now you are protecting your vehicle and you're improving the appearance of the surface at the same time.
And everything's uniform. It really does do a better job of making it look really good. All right, Joe, now that's a lot of information when it comes to corrosive undercoating, otherwise known as brine. And you guys know the product really well because not only do you develop it, but you actually use it, correct?
That's correct. We have about 3,000 vehicles come through our year. And when the road agents and the towns come in here to purchase, I pick their brains. They love to talk about it. So we understand the type of additives that they're putting in it to make it effective and corrosive.
What I'd like to know is the inside scoop. So next week, you guys join us. We're going to give you more information about the undercoating.
Stay tuned to Sam's Garage. When we come back, Sam, along with Kevin Ford, will continue working on the Buick Skylark project.
All right, Kevin, this is where the exciting part comes in. That engine is about to go into this old school car. It's makes 700 horsepower and it's going to have good drivability, right?
Yeah, this thing's, it's a modern fuel injected motor, but they don't look right in these if you don't do something, and that's why we offer these crate engine packages.
Yeah, it looks like an old small block. Like I said, without the exhaust ports, you could never tell. It's going to look really good in here. I love the way you guys painted it. Anywhere we're needing strength, we're going to be using ARP hardware for the motor mount brackets onto the engine and the motor mount through bolts. So here's your ARP fastener for your motor mount. Travis, go ahead and pump that thing up. Let's get it centered up and get this thing installed.
A couple more there. That leg's gonna get my knee. Come on back. Start letting it down, work so high.
Now, anytime you guys are doing an engine swap like this, it's a good idea to take some time and clean up the engine bay. We have minimal wires on our engine harness from the factory. The engine harness, the Holley fuel injection is going to be isolated from the car, except for an ignition wire. So the factory wires, all we're going to use is going to be the coolant sending unit, the oil pressure sending unit, the starter switch coming out of the ignition switch for the starter signal wire, and we're going to use the coil wire as the ignition wire to the Holley setup because it's going to be live under cranking. That's very important. Kevin, I love the way that engine looks in that engine bay. You guys did an awesome job with your accessories, making it look like an old school motor.
Well, I appreciate that. We've got a whole line of them, and this one is a new prototype, if you will, for the Buick 455, and so it was only appropriate to have it.
Slanted distributor, it looks period correct, absolutely. Yeah. And it's going to make a whole bunch of horsepower, 650 to 700 horsepower. Now, sometimes when we get these aftermarket motor mounts, they slip right in. Sometimes it takes a little bit of persuasion.
Yeah, we struggled a little bit to get the bolts lined up, but all in all, those Holley brackets were right in the right spot, and we just had to get the height on the motor just right.
Yep, so. And with that kit comes the cross member. And with the cross member, guys, they even give you the hooker headers. All three go together, and it makes for a nice, easy install.
Yep, I'm excited to get the rest of it done, hook up the fuel lines, hook up all the electronics.
And listen to it run.
That's right.
And then maybe we'll even do a little burnout.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by Brothers Truck Parts.
That looks so good in there, Doug. I'm so glad that Mike kept the front end off so that we can make this much easier for both of us.
Oh my God, it's been so easy to get to everything. With the front end off, you can sit down, you can reach it all, you can get to everything you need, and you don't have to worry about scuffing anything up. I mean, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. And Wade, you did a great job on these carburetors and the distributor rebuild. This thing ran on the Easy Run engine test stand, no problem. And so when we get it all buttoned up with the exhaust, he's going to come on set with us and tune it in with us, dial in the distributor and the timing. It's going to really purr. I can't wait to see what it's going to sound like with an exhaust system on it and what kind of power we're going to make. Because I did ask Don to hop it up a little bit.
Man, I think this is going to be absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to go out to that great race and get her running down the road.
Oh, that's going to be fun. And you know, anytime you guys are building a hot rod like this, you want to make sure if there is the option of you being able to do this job with the front end off, it's going to make it so much easier for you, right?
Oh my God, it's so much easier. I mean, I've spent years leaning over cars, trying not to scratch them up, trying to get to stuff underneath. This way we can get to everything we need. It's simple, it's fast, it's so much easier.
Yep. Let's go on to the transmission, get that buttoned up with the drive shaft in and continue with the fuel system.
Sounds good. Let's get after it.
Installing the transmission into our Hudson Hornet, and this is a little different than what we're both used to. The torque converter, I'm going to be tightening down the torque, the flywheel bolts or flex plate bolts. We're going to torque them down. There's a little retainer right here that you push the tabs in, and that's going to lock our nuts in place because this is a two-piece torque converter. Right here is the gasket, probably the most important gasket in the car itself. This is going to go in between the torque converter and the flex plate, and there's fluid, of course, is inside the torque converter. So what we're doing is making sure that we've gotten our bolts torqued down properly. Then we're going to move our retainer in place, and in that way Doug and I can go ahead and put the transmission up in place and go ahead and bolt it together. Anytime you're torquing anything down, you always want to go back and re-torque because by the time you get done tightening the last item, the first one's most likely going to be loose. Take care of the nuts. We've got the retainer in place. Everything's locked down. We know it's good. We've got our surface cleaned up for this gasket that's going to be in between the two halves of the torque converter. Very important, there's a dial here and here, so the gasket's going to be held in place by those two dials. Do not use glue on this gasket because it lives inside your torque converter, and God forbid we contaminate the transmission fluid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start it, not tighten it, just because there's so many of these to save time. We're going to use power on the first round. On the second round, we're going to go back with a wrench. Well, Doug, looks like we've got the transmission installed. Went without a hitch. It looks really good up under here. If you remember last season, this thing looked nasty under here. Looked like it had gone through mud.
Oh, it was terrible. You know, I'm amazed at the way it looks. When we first looked at it, it was terrible, but this is fantastic.
Absolutely. Mike did a great job. And I want to thank Paul Townsend from Paul's Transmissions in Baker City, Oregon, for doing a fantastic job on rebuilding our old Hudson hydromatic transmission. This thing has a fill cap on top of it, and there's an access hole through the floorboard underneath the carpet where we're going to be using to fill up this transmission. And the drive shaft is installed. Now, anytime you guys are doing a project like this, you always want to do some beautification. Like if you notice, we powder coated the bell housing cover, we powder coated the cross member and this cross member. And you know, when you're doing something like this and you got such nice things going on it, powder coating gives you longevity and it looks good for a long, long time.
It looks fantastic. You know, when Mike did such a wonderful, what was the name of his company
Lewis
again?
Rod and Customs.
That sounds great. He did a wonderful job.
Stay tuned to the next episode of Sam's Garage, where we continue to work on the Hudson Hornet and Buick Skylark projects. Up next, Sam will introduce some products from NH Oil Undercoating Incorporated to protect your vehicle from corrosion. Get ready as Sam and Kevin Ford continue on the Buick Skylark project installing the transmission. Sam, with the help of Doug Harris, prepares the fuel system and gas tank to be reunited with the chassis.